black pastors in general, for people who don't know, tend to exert more authority in their churches than pastors for some other denominations and other cultures, would stand in the pulpit and preach this diatribe about hate and sin and abomination and all these things. And he would look behind him and say, you know, we need a song. And these would be the very people. And to me, as a free-thinking person, the two just didn't mesh.
I don't believe in equality in spite of my faith. I believe in equality because of my faith. It is something so basic to me. And I'm a Christian. So I'm a Christian that believes in love and acceptance. And I'm tired of having to apologize and say, oh, I'm not that type of Christian. And I'm going to take back the language of love. It's going to start with me. That's what being a Christian was about and is about. And the black church was a bastion of love for many of us. It was the foundation by which we survived. And it could no longer be a hate monger for a whole group of people.
And when you actually study the scriptures, and you go back to the translations in Greek and Aramaic and those kind of things, there's absolutely no condemnation in those original scriptures. That these things have all been created by people furthering their own values and their own interest. And I just think these things need to be brought to the fore and discussed in a loving, engaging kind of way with people, but in a logical way and in a firm way, that these people are telling you things that are not true. Most of these scriptures that people talk about are related in a contextual way to to health issues, to family issues, to those kind of things that were attached to basic survival at the time. And why are we selective in the scriptures? If we're going to select that kind of a scripture that talks about men laying with men and women laying with women, why don't we select the scripture about killing our children when they're disobedient? You know, there are several scriptures that we can select from that are in Leviticus, which is where the conservative right-wing Christians get this stuff. But it just so happens that they're very selective in what they choose to advocate. And that's just wrong. And I believe that people have to stand up for injustice.
I don't know of any religion that exists that does not put an emphasis on treating one's neighbor as you would want yourself to be treated. It's, to me, a very simple proposition. Whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Jew, whether you're a Hindu, whatever your particular religious beliefs are, I think by the very nature of who you call your creator, you recognize that the Creator brought everybody into this world. The Creator is responsible for everyone being here. And if you happen to be a Christian, as I happen to be, and you believe in this simple principle, which is God makes no mistakes. If you believe that God makes no mistakes and that we're all brothers and sisters, and that God created all of us, then how could one assume for a moment that God who created lesbians and God who created gays and others made a mistake? It's simple to me. It's a simple proposition. You either believe as a believer that God intended for everybody to be respected and protected and treated fairly, or you don't. I'm gonna stay on the battlefield until I die.
Bridges can be built between the LGBT community and the larger black community by making sure that people realize that there are many commonalities that we share in the fight for civil rights, and that reaching equality for one specific group is not enough, and that equality needs to be met across the board.
And the commonalities are is that we both understand the struggle. We both understand that it's not a good thing to be discriminated against, and more importantly, that how we get about that is by not being quiet, not walking away from the situation and saying that we can't do anything about it, but we have to fight.
How can LGBT African Americans bridge the gap with the larger black community? And I really do think that has to be reversed. It's incumbent upon us as straight people to bridge that gap and accept our brothers and sisters for who they are and support them in that, so that they can have what we all hope to have, which is love, happiness, and the freedom to be who you want to be.
It's a matter of, if you are being denied rights in our civil society that everybody else is entitled to, then that is a civil rights issue. And you have to break it down, and you have to go slow, and you have to be patient. Just because you are there and you've arrived and you've gotten it doesn't mean that the next person has.
Now, my parents got married in the 50s. My mom's white, my dad's black. They got married in Washington, D.C. and lived in Washington, D.C. because it was illegal for them to be married anywhere else in the area. And when I think that my parents had to choose how they were going to live and where they were going to live based on some silly, outdated laws that were, in fact, turned away some years later. In the meanwhile, they did everything the old American way. They got married, they had 2 kids, they got divorced. These are like normal American things, and thank God that they had all of those options available to them. And I think that gay people should have the right to get married and get divorced just like anybody else.
Honestly, I think it takes those of us who are straight allies leading the way, because really I think the onus is always on the people in the majority to change things for the minority, period. That's who is ultimately responsible, because we're the ones with the power. We're the ones with the privilege. So we need to be willing to deconstruct all that, so to speak, to break it down, to share it, if we're going to make change happen and true equality and justice be a reality in this country for LGBT people.
Well, the Maryland Black Family Alliance really is something that, it's unprecedented in this country. We feel so proud to be a part of this organization. It's straight African Americans who have gathered together to say that really liberty and justice for all should be just that, liberty and justice for all. We're teachers, politicians, professors, singers, artists who are banded together in support of all black families in Maryland, all families in Maryland, including those headed by same-sex households. The MBFA is there. We are there to fight for equality. We're there to fight for the civil rights of our brothers and sisters, and we are more important now than ever. This is so much more than a forum. It's so much more than a wonderful website. It is people's lives. It is people's loves. And I take that with me everywhere I go. That's why we do what we do.
For me, the Maryland Black Family Alliance is important because it is a focal point.
It helps educate our community. The Maryland Black Family Alliance is really a vehicle.
It also serves to be, hopefully, a catalyst
to bring down those walls of discrimination.
To take a stand for what they believe in.
The Maryland Black Family Alliance is about justice, fairness, and equality for all Maryland families.
We're adding a new voice, a voice of inclusion out there, and this voice is definitely needed.